Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Business Coaching Secrets. I am, in fact, the one and the only, the Road Dog, and I am here joined by the king himself, Mr. Karl Bryan. Sir.
Hey. Yo ho ho, Road Dog. How goes it there, my man?
Going quite well, my friend. I've got some very cool questions, and believe it or not, I sprinkled a couple in there of my own this week.
Yeah. There we go.
We'll see. It's every once in a while I get a couple that pop in my head. I'm like, hang on a sec, right? Why not use this as my own personal coaching therapy?
Okay, man. Let's do it, dude. Let's do it. Right. Hit me.
All right. First and foremost, this one came in, and this one reminds me of kind of early days for me as well. But fantastic question. Okay, so newer coach looking to do an event, and obviously, as you and I both know, hey, it's super important to not go crazy. You've only got limited cash flow, so they're looking to do an event, and they're looking at like sponsors, right? Like, do you have any tips on how to look for sponsors and who you should be looking at, and as well as venues or anything like that? Do you have any tips just to keep a new coach's costs low and just to really get them cranking in their first event?
Yeah. Okay. So just to be clear, so brand new coach is asking about controlling costs for doing their first event, or we would assume first event. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So the way that I would answer that is it's psychology 101. And I love the question, but I also, the psychology behind it possibly could have been improved dramatically. Here's what I mean. When you do an event, the money is all in the marketing, time, and expertise is in marketing that event big time. This is where your money should be allocated. When you do, if you do an event at an inexpensive venue, let's say it's going to be $500. If you do an event at a really high-end venue, let's say it's going to be $1,000, right? We're talking about $500. If you take on, it's all about return on investment. It's about margin. Again, if you read financial statements, you guys heard me talk about that probably a zillion times. You've got to have margin. Well, if you put money into the stock market or invested in real estate, you get a 10% return, and that's kind of what you just accept to be reality. Well, if you do an event and it costs you $1,000, let's say you do a terrible presentation, you got a terrible audience, and you are a brand new coach and lose your guy early. You're $1,000 a month, and one person in the room, you get 10 people there, and only one person signs up, and that person gets coached by you for 3 months and then cancels. That's $3,000, and you spent $1,000 on it. That is a return on steroids, and the only thing, and you might see the average coach would see that and go, oh my God, it didn't work. I'm no good at this. What am I doing? Et cetera, et cetera. When in actual fact, you took 1,000 and turned it into 3,000. The only thing you need to do is do your next event immediately. So just think of the word compounding. Once again, we all understand, compounding from our investments, right? The rule of 7. If you get a 7.2% return on your money, you'll double your dough every 7 years, right? Every 10 years. 7.2 every 10 years, you double it. So you get $100,000. Is that what it is? Hang on a second. What am I messing this up?
Rule of 72.
10% return. It's every 7 years, right? Make sure I get it right. But the bottom line is that your dough is doubling consistently, and that's what you're looking at, with your investments. Well, the same thing. If you made $1,000, you turned it into 3. Everything will compound from there. The people that came and thought you did a good job, they might start referring you. Your expertise is going to compound. Your ability to entertain from the front of the room is going to compound. Your contacts are going to compound. The accountant comes into the room, you do a great job, you make a big deal of them. hopefully if you've listened to some of my other podcasts, I've talked about the dynamic and how you do that. Well, one accountant with 40 clients, that could send you 40 clients that say he has 400, and then he really likes you, he likes your style, and you help him grow his business, and he helps you grow your business. That one account that could send you 40 clients over the next X 3 years, once again, think of that from a compounding point of view. What I'm getting at is I would encourage you to not really worry too much about the venue. It's not, the venue is critical, but the expense of the venue is not, because again, it's negligible. 500 to 1,000, just that really shouldn't matter to you all that much. I know sometimes it does. So there's an element of reality. I want to talk to your psychology more than the 101s here, okay? Because it's when I'm going into my event, it's just a matter of putting bums in seats. So therefore, when I'm choosing my event, right? Like let's say, first of all, the best place to do it as a rule is the Chamber of Commerce, for the simple reason that when you call businesses, the Chamber has a massive amount of credibility. So when you call and say that I'm doing a live event and it's at the Chamber, they assume that the Chamber's putting it on, which is a fantastic thing, and you will get bums on seats, okay? In some cases, the Chamber either doesn't allow food, or they don't have a big enough room, or maybe they just don't rent it out for these types of events. That's fine. That does happen sometimes. So then you find another one. Find something somewhat prestigious, right? Like Road Dogg, you and I, when we did that first event together, we closed 100% of the room into high-end coaching clients. Well, basically, we did it. Remember, we read through that process, and we did it at the Yacht Club. Why did we do it at the Yacht Club? I said, what are the most prestigious venues in the city? And they need to be easy to get to. There needs to be good parking, and you got to think about traffic at the time that you're doing your event, right? Because that's going to be a challenge that can stuff things up, right? Well, we did it at the Yacht Club because it had a level of prestige. We spent probably $250 more to get the room. But at the end of the day, if an extra person comes as a result of that, that's good. So you've got it's the Yacht Club, or like the Holiday Inn, okay, or a room at the back of Denny's, or a low-end restaurant. Like when you call the business owner and it's at a prestigious location, they feel like it's a prestigious event. It's a 101. So the psychology, and then also getting sponsors. Like let's say you wanted to get a caterer in to sponsor it, and then they'd be doing that as a result of, they want to get exposed to your business owners. Again, you could do that, but I don't know. Again, so what you're doing is you're cutting out the expense of the food, but the food, again, is negligible. It's just such a small amount of money to feed 10 people. And then if you're a sponsor, I've got it, like Road Dogg, let's say you're sponsoring my event and you're a catering company, I would be doing the wrong thing if I don't take X amount of my time and then promote you and thank you and, show you to everybody and say, look, if you're looking to get, food or catering an event, go to Road Dogg's catering services. Well, I just took 6 minutes of my presentation that is designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that is turn people into coaching clients. End of story. Mic drop. The end. I don't know that the catering company sponsoring it is the most, the best idea in the world. If you know what I mean? But that being said, this is gray, not black and white. I don't want to say, flat out, 100% don't get a caterer, because if you could save yourself a few $100 and then that person was adding value in some way, shape, or form. Like, let's say that Road Dogg, you're the catering company and you're one of my coaching clients, and then you're going to stand up and say amazing things about me. And this is social proof on steroids. Well, that would change the dynamic slightly, right? But at the same time, just understand when I do an event, return on investment, a margin is what I'm looking for. Well, basically I invest $1,000 and then I turn that into $3,000 if everything goes sideways. And by the way, screw $3,000. Like, let's get 3 coaching clients for 12 months, right? Well, if you're $1,000 a month, that's now $36,000 in exchange for the $1,000 that it cost you to put on the event. So, actually, you know what? I might explain this in a different way that I think is insanely powerful. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but guys, if you're listening to this podcast, you want to listen to what I'm about to say, because this is huge. I've written about this in different emails, but this is big. If you had something in 1985, okay, and it cost $100, there's distribution and then there's product, okay? So distribution, you got a T-shirt, okay? You've got the distribution of the T-shirt and then the making of the product. So in 1985, that would be If it cost $10, it would be $5 product, $5 distribution is the way to basically 50-50 would be the idea. 50% on product, 50% on distribution. Well, in this today, product is 15 cents and distribution is 85. Okay? Well, if we go to the average coaching client, they will tell you that they're thinking about making their products in China. Why? Because they want to make them, they want to make them for less and save some more dough. Well, understand that what they are doing is they are now trying to take the 15 and make it smaller, and it would be a 10 times better use of their time if they looked at distribution and tried to, minimize the 85 instead of the 15, right? I give you that example in here because it's product versus distribution. The event, the $1,000 you're paying for the specific event is like trying to cut down on expenses on the product. When in actuality, the distribution, and in this instance, this is getting people to the room, getting them in the room, entertaining them while they're in the room, educating while they're in the room, getting them back to their offices, getting your butt into their offices or on the phone, and then closing them into high-end coaching clients. Spend your time on distribution versus product. And by the way, your client should be doing the exact same thing. And I can tell you from an enormous amount of experience that people are dialed in, like this question, on the product. And that's a mistake. They're spending their time, money, mental energy on the wrong side of the ledger, on the 15 instead of the 85. So, and I would dare say, in this instance, it's even more. It's almost 95-5 or like 90-10 versus my example of 85-15 on the T-shirts from China. So that's what I'd say to that, man. Is that, but that being said, how would I lower it? Maybe I got to give a direct answer here. Just look, the Chamber of Commerce, or like a board of trade. Or maybe there's a Porsche dealership. Like say there's a Porsche or a Lamborghini or a high-end. A lot of business owners you'll find will be kind of that type of personality. If they're looking for a little bit of foot traffic, there's a pretty decent chance. If you say, look, I'm bringing 10 business owners in every Tuesday or every second Tuesday over the next X amount of time, can I have your board of your, can I use your boardroom pro bono, free of charge? And I'll be exposing you to a lot of business owners, and I'll be scratching your back and you'll be scratching mine, whatever. That's something that I think could work. And the yacht club, same thing. You could go in there and negotiate a deal. One of the most powerful talents that any business owner, your clients and you, can basically build is the power and the ability to negotiate. So go in there and start doing some negotiation. If you can take 1,000 and turn it into 500 in a conversation, right, and do it quickly, succinctly, and not spend an enormous amount of time on it, then yeah, of course you should do it. But is this where I think your mental energy is best used? And the answer is a categoric no. So Road Dog, that's how I'd answer that one, my man. Hopefully that's helpful.
No, it's super helpful. It's funny because I guess I was the one footing the bill for our event. But did you know that the yacht club was actually cheaper than the hotels?
Really? Well,
yeah.
So really?
I would just challenge everyone on that too. Just because you may, again, here with the psychology, you may just assume and just think that places are more expensive. I would also say, remember that Al Gore, the Tony Robbins presentation where Al Gore was in the audience and he was basically, he got caught basically saying, look, the only reason you lost the election is because you weren't resourceful enough. It's the exact same thing. And it's funny you mentioned the Porsche dealership, because I think you bring that up because it was actually our friend Johnny Utah that actually said to me, he said, Christian, I don't know why you don't just come over to the Porsche dealership. I'll just, he was a sales guy there at the time and said, you can use the boardroom for free. Because again, people, you got to remember that these guys, you're talking about bringing entrepreneurs into an event. And if they can get the foot traffic through, like just think of all of the other places and have fun with it. Like be resourceful and have some of those conversations. So that's all I got to say about that. I think a Porsche dealership, that's sexy, man. Like who wouldn't want to go and check out some cars before a presentation?
100%.
Right. So, okay. One of my questions. All right. You ready for this one? This one came to me after last week. and this is a direct result of what I'm looking at staring me in the face. How do you tame your inbox? And the reason I ask is I have 836 unread emails that I need to tackle. And I'm like, oh my God, there has to be a better way. So how do you tame your inbox?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, answer to this one is that I might not be the best person to be asking about taming an inbox because I have a pretty wild monster staring at me myself. But a couple of things. Just a personal assistant should be in there. They're really, if you think about your inbox, I know that it probably at this stage it feels like well, actually, two parts. Number one is you should learn to manage, don't go and outsource this too early because you've really got to get a feel for the stuff that is and is not coming in, right? The second part is that you'll be amazed, and I don't think this will go, as I say it, it might not make perfect sense because you're like, no, I don't think that's me, but you're going to find that and if you send 10 emails, 5 of them could be templated, if not 8 of them, right? Half of them for sure. And then if they can be templated, then your personal assistant can go in and handle those emails. It's also easy, and again, you'll be able to train your personal assistant on how to go in there and then decipher between, what is templated response and then what is not, right? And then if she just reads it, this can't be templated, she just marks it as unread, puts it back in, right? That's how I do it. So a personal assistant handing that stuff off, definitely some templated. And then if you don't want her to sign off or him, that's the personal assistant, all they do is they put in the templated response, they exit, and if you I use Gmail, and probably a lot of you do also. So if you go into Gmail, basically all of those responses from her will be sitting there as she'll X them, and then they're just sitting there as drafts. And then you can go in and put, a 10% final touch on it if you feel like that's appropriate, right? You just go in and you go ping, 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 ping. And if there's, hypothetically, I think for the average coach, there's going to be 20 emails there that are say you got 40 emails and 20 of them are of the templated variety. You got 20 sitting there, you scoot through them, you put a personal, if it's if I send an email to a woman, often what I'll do is I'll go smiles and, KB or however I sign it off, right? If I'm sending it to a guy, I don't put smiles. You know what I mean? Once again, this templated in my inbox, right? With, and I have somebody the person I have managing mine. But you see how that's a small thing. But if she put, smiles and I was sending it to you, Road Dog, you might get it and you're like, why is he sending me? It's weird, right? There's just that masculine and feminine vibe. But what I'm trying to get at is that's an example of something that you might go in, and then you might want to put, just something. If it's a buddy and he rides motorbikes and you ride motorbikes, you might want to, she's never going to know that, and then you're going to go in and say, hey man, hope the Harley's going well, and then the rest of the email is fine, right? So that's just one little bit of a touch to it. So that's an example. Also, there's technology Slack, I believe it's called. I hope I'm not messing that up. But if you Google it, you'll be able to find it. Just go Slack email. Because I also think it's important for your clients. And some of these guys are, decent-sized companies with decent amount of staff. Slack. I've never used it. I don't know how to use it. But I know that has got pretty decent reviews out there where basically you've got emails that are being exchanged internally. And it's a good way to kind of maintain it. So if it's a huge problem for you, you might want to be looking at a solution, something along those lines. But yeah, but I think a personal, a virtual assistant, you can hire them overseas. 123employee.com is one of our clients, uses our system and whatnot. And Davin Michaels, legend of a guy, very popular guy in the internet marketing world. They would be able to help you out, 123employee.com, if you're looking for a virtual assistant for a reasonable amount of a monthly expense.
Nice. And I would just add to that, Karl, too. Just it's for me, my biggest challenge is the inflow coming in. And for me, it's just a matter of, a lot of it, guys, is you still have so many subscriptions and newsletters that you're subscribed to. Just take a long, hard look and really honestly, because I'm the worst for this. I used to hoard magazines, Karl, like skateboard, snowboard magazines. That was my thing. If you checked out, I could probably still in my parents' basement, I could probably still find boxes of this stuff. I don't know what it was maybe for you it was BMX magazines, but I'm the same way when it comes to newsletters, and you just have to ask yourself, okay, like, do I really need this newsletter from whoever? And just do a sort it by who it's from and just start unsubscribing. I'm trying to make that a daily habit of unsubscribing from at least 2 to 3 newsletters just to keep things sane.
Actually, you bring up a really good, so there's rules, like what you should be doing is going to create a rule. Like if you get email from it, like you should have, like don't put that straight into your inbox. That stuff should be going to a folder. That's important for sure, right? So you do have to go in and create folders. So emails like that one, like you should have an hour, my opinion, I would take my day and I would create an hour, right, that was allocated to going through and reading, like say, because you're not just subscribing to this for your good looks, right? You're doing this for, like, you want to go and learn something from these guys, right? And if there's something to be learned, you want to read it, you want to be able to write it down, you want to be able to revisit, like this is something you want to take in. So I don't think it's like, I don't know that unsubscribing, if the guy's a waste of time or the gal's a waste of time, you unsubscribe immediately, totally. Like give them a run, look at 10 emails. If they're just selling you every time, see you later. If they're providing you an enormous amount of value, then you should put it in an important place and go read it. But take an hour of your day and allocate it on your schedule to go through your marketing emails and put them all in the same place. You don't have to go through 6 folders. You go through one, call it, like mine, it's called marketing. Then I go through and I just read through. So I think creating folders is very important. And your virtual assistant, if this isn't something that, as we say it, you're like, what the hell is a folder? How do I do that? Where would I do that? I'm not an IT guy. Your virtual assistant will be able to do this in 2 seconds. And frankly, if they're any good, they'll be able to provide a lot of value there. Well, what about these 3? Like, your invoices should go here. Your marketing should go here. When your staff email you, it should go into this inbox. You don't, some of this
Karl,
stuff you need on a immediate basis.
So let me ask you this then, because you mentioned spending an hour a day. So that's kind of an interesting one. So like when you structure your week, I'd like to know what your week looks like. Do you have like, do you try and do like a specific number of tasks, like that one as an example, per day? Like how do you set up your week and then I guess your daily tasks if you have any?
Okay, here's how, once again, I want to make sure I don't want to put myself out there as like the most organized guy in the world, because quite frankly, that is, categorically not the case. And my wife and children will be able to tell you that. But here is what I do, but I do manage to get, I think, a little more done than the average bear. Here's how I do it. So every day you have to have the 3, and this is stolen straight from Tony Robbins' program, RPM. Okay, when I start my day, I have like a list of tasks. Road Dog, you're not getting through your to-do list. I'm not getting through my to-do list, and nobody listening is getting through theirs. It just doesn't happen. Well, if you do that, then guess what? At the end of the day, you just feel like, you know what I mean? Because you're got 10 things on your to-do list. You get 4 done and miss 6, or you get 6 done and miss 4. You feel like you didn't get anything. You feel like the 4 are going to annoy you more than you're going to pat yourself back on the 6, right? It's just human nature. So it's very important not to put that kind of pressure on yourself and your schedule. So what you do is the 3 most important things. And what I do of a nighttime is I write down the 3 most important things. I like last night. Right? I basically went through what are the 3 most important things I need to do today, wrote them down. The first thing I do in the morning, not email, not social media for sure, not private messages, blah, 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 blah. Look at my 3 things. And what I do is I evaluate it and agree with it. I either give it the thumbs up or I alter it, or in some cases what I'll do, and I tried not to do this, but I'll add a couple items. So now I got 5 things I got to accomplish today instead of 3, right? And basically, and again, if you want to take it to another level, what you can do is you basically, take your day and turn it into quarters, like a football game. And I really think that this is a good idea for a lot of folks. I mean, I don't do this religiously, but this is part of my, ideal day and ideal program is that if I've got 8 hours or I'm working 10, let's say I'm working 8 hours for easy math. Well, every 2 hours, alarm goes off. Every 2 hours, you set it on, you get an iPhone, you do this in 2 seconds, right? So you set an alarm every 2 hours, the bell goes, and that's quarter time. And the question is, how did you do, right? And then it's halftime. Question is, what did you do? And you're going to find in the last 20 minutes before the bell goes off, you're going to kick it into gear and get more done. just the same way they do in a football game. It happens in hockey in, 3 periods, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, by doing that, you are going to find that you're going to become significantly more productive, and the goal is to win the day. And if the way that I win a day, I give myself a check mark, and I do this internally. I mean, I don't necessarily grab a piece of paper and give myself a check mark, but simply put, at the beginning of the day, did I get the 3 things done? And if I did, I get a check mark. I won the day. If I didn't, I get a little bit frustrated, frankly, and I make sure that tomorrow, I don't want to lose 2 games in a row. That's for damn sure, right? So I do it that way. And before the week starts, you should have the exact same. So here's a question. What are the 3 most important things that you need to get done this week, right? And it will depend on the individual and how busy, or in many cases not busy, quote unquote, they are. Like, in other words, no coaching clients, no prospects. This is a huge problem. So, just creating a list of the 3 most important things that you must get done by the end of the week, and you will find that you will kick it into gear at a very, real and tangible way. So that's the way that I do it. I do think that there's significant power in that, and I would encourage others. And I think probably the most important of what I've said, and maybe the one that kind of went unnoticed, but creating an alarm clock that goes off 4 times a day for quarter time, and then at the end of the day, it's the 8-hour mark. The day is over. You get out of that office and you go hang out with the family, or you go whatever your shtick is, right? Go for a drive, go for a bike ride, go for a jog, go to the bar and have a beer with your bud, whatever it is, right? Like, get out of there and do it. Like, the Friday before you're going on vacation on Saturday, the Thursday and Friday, but more specifically the Friday, is one of the most, at the end of the day, you'll say to yourself, you take a deep breath and go, wow, did I accomplish a lot today? Almost always happens. And why? It's just, you've got a deadline. Okay, that's why the alarm goes off every 2 hours, because it's a deadline. People don't create. You've got to manufacture deadlines. Okay, because again, think of school back in the day. When did you do the work, right? When you have a big event and you're doing a 2-hour presentation and it's a new presentation with new content, what happens the day before? Most of the work gets done. You become 10 times as productive, which is the X factor. You've got to manufacture deadlines for yourself. Most folks don't do that, and quite frankly, that's why they don't get much accomplished, because there's no deadline. The problem with an entrepreneur is that you don't have anybody kicking your what and holding you to task. And so therefore all this stuff gets pushed off. So that's so my week, a little bit like that, man, a little bit like that.
So it's interesting you mentioned the holiday thing, because I forget, it's something I learned from an old coach and mentor of mine, Doug Carter, and I forget, it's like some sort of rule where it's like, you basically will use 100% of the time that is allotted to you, like X number of times, right? Like, it's very rare that it's like, oh wow, look at that, I finished this like 3 hours early. It's just like, if you're allotting 2 hours for a project, you will use the full 2 hours. If you're gonna allot an hour, you will probably get as much done within that hour by creating that deadline. It's exactly like you're saying about the holiday thing. People get an unreal amount of stuff done before they know that they're going to be offline, if there's such a thing anymore. But it's that whole thinking, right? So very, very interesting.
100%, dude.
So, all right, kicking it back now from that stuff to more practical, tactical, specific questions when it comes to coaching. This one I thought was very interesting, because I was personally challenged on this, of my beliefs and my thinking. It's funny how it always comes back to psychology, and I'm sure everyone's getting sick and tired of us talking about it. But here's a good question. So how much time should I spend with a new client? Because we talk about, and it's out there a lot, you got to spend an hour a week, right? And then is that enough? Do you do more? And when does more become not just overwhelming for you, but for the client? So like, what's the magic? And again, there's no magic, there's no exact science, but obviously you've got tons and tons and tons, 300 years of experience here. So like, what does that look like in your wisdom?
Okay. First of all, psychology, like you said, but it always does come back to psychology. Success in anything, sport, school, whatever, is always 80% psychology, 20% mechanics, if not 95-5. So what I say, so here's at the beginning of the first 90 days, you got to get some runs on the board, or the client is not going to continue. End of story, mic drop, the end, show's over, everybody's going home, right? So just, you've got to understand that. And by the way, progress equals happiness. So your job is to create a happy relationship. When your client thinks of you and your relationship, it's got to feel like progress, which will be, an aura of happiness around you, right? Without sounding all strange, but it's just reality. So therefore, in those first 30, 60, 90 days, you've got to get runs on the board. So to just go, I'm going to spend 1 hour with my client, I would just adjust that thinking to, what needs to happen in order for your client to get X result. And by the way, you should know, what is that X result? Well, you ask your client questions and you get a feel for, here's a question that I ask. If I sat down with you and I tried to sell you coaching, I would say, when did you start your business? Why did you start your business? Again, those are rapport building questions, and I'm trying to get them, back. And I'm not listening just their words, but I'm reading the speed at which they're talking. If I'm on the phone, the volume at which they're talking, et cetera, like a level of excitement, or is this dread, right? Really important that you learn to do that. And if I'm sitting with you, I'm reading body language as much as I am anything else. Because you know what they say, 7% of communication is verbal, right? 7%, 93% is the other stuff, right? The body language and tonality and all that sort of thing, arms crossed, body open. So again, I'm reading all of this stuff. So this is what I'd say. Why did you start your business? When did you start your business? My next question, with 100% certainty, steal this. If you're not using it, you got to steal this, right? Tell me, Road Dog, what are the 3 biggest challenges you currently face in your business? Okay, your answer to that, I'll sit there with you for another hour and a half, and everything else, it's not that it goes out the window, but it is totally secondary to the answer to that. Unless something else, if you, again, 1 hour later, you know what, back when you said challenges and obstacles, you know what, that would need to be in there. Okay, this is how I sell you. These are your challenges. These are your obstacles. This is your problem. And now my job is to provide a solution. And you always find it's going to come back to sales, marketing, people, and systems, and people being staff. All those 4 with almost 95% predictability. It's good. Their challenges are going to live in those 4. And what I do is I'm not only just dialing in, on the one of those 4, but if you say systems for my staff, or system for my inbox, or system for X, I use those exact same words back to you when I close you, right? So Road Dog, one of the things that we're going to do here, man, is we are going to have a system for X. We are going to have a system for your inbox. We are going to have a system for X. Exactly the words that you used, ideally, are the exact words that I am spitting back to you. And yes, when you say it, I am writing this down, and I am writing it down verbatim as what you're saying it, so that I can revisit that when it comes time to close. Super duper duper important. But anyway, so you got to just change your psychology to your job is to get the job done. At the same time, you got to manage expectations, because if you do too much work in those first 30, 60, 90 days, you can create a little bit of a monster where now everything is disappointment from that point on. So you need to make it very clear and implicitly state that you are going above and beyond here. And this, our relationship, remember, is for, these weekly coaching calls. And you see, I'm showing up and I'm sitting beside you and going through your accounts receivable and helping you solve this problem. This isn't the way our relationship works, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get this thing up off the road, right? Or up off the ground. But I think what this question is looking for is a framework, and I'm not giving you a framework. I'm giving you more of a mindset to do whatever it takes to get runs on the board and to get you into a position where you feel like my relationship, equals progress for you and your business, and frankly your financials, which are critical. But a straightforward answer is that what I would do is 12 weeks, 1 hour a week for 12 weeks, and then for week 13 on, go to every second week. So the idea, think of it this way, and the way I say it to my client to get them on board, is that what we're going to do is we're going to go heavy in the first 9 months to make sure that we get the snowball built, and it's going to continue to roll down the hill. But once we've got it built up, it's easy to compound the snowball. But the trick is to get it, to get the snowball built. Or another metaphor is the airplane is well and truly glued, to the bitumen here, to the concrete. Let's make sure we got to get this thing going and get this plane up. There's a lot of work to do that, but once we get at cruising altitude, we're all going to be laughing, and this is going to be a lot easier. So a weekly basis for the first 12 weeks, and then bi-weekly from then on. The reason why, and I think they said it in the question there, overwhelm, right? Like, that's your concern. If you're a good coach and you're allocating tasks and keeping your client going on a weekly basis can be a little bit of overkill, because a week goes by real quick. And a bad result for your coaching relationship is feeling like the client's always letting you down, and the client feeling like they're never getting anything done. This is a horrible result. So
yeah, let me ask you this, Karl.
So I think that's two-part answer there, but that's the way I'd answer that.
Let me ask you this, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but do you think that maybe if after, again, I totally agree with you, and by the way, just a quick sidestep before I get to my tongue-in-cheek comment here. The whole, I was challenged on the whole thing as well of doing weekly beyond the first, quarter essentially. And, it was a coach of mine that said to me, Christian, the only reason that you feel you need to do that is because you are not sold and or comfortable with what you're charging, and you're trying to compensate by delivering more than you really need to. And I was like, whoa, right. That's a big comment right there. And again, the way that you structure that, again, if you want to do bi-weekly and one of those is virtual, one of those is face-to-face, it's completely up to you. But the thing I wanted to tongue-in-cheek kind of say was, odds are good if after the first quarter, your client isn't getting overwhelmed by you seeing them on a weekly basis. It probably means that you're not very effective at what you do. You know what I mean? Like if it's a constant thing of you got to implement this, we're moving this forward, this and that, they may go like, holy smokes, like this is getting, they love it. But at the same time, it's like I've had it where when the more demanding of a coach that I've had, the more I know that I need to get done. And again, that in conjunction with just doing your regular business, that gets overwhelming. So would you agree with that?
Yeah. No, look, mic drop, 100%. Perfectly, yes. I would agree, man. You got to, look, ultimately, you got to become a killer coach. That's just, when all this is said and done, you've got to become, your goal has to be the number, no, it doesn't have to be, but if you want to achieve mastery and you want to never have to think about money ever again, and you want to be like, the business coach of the stars, and you really, really want to blitz it, and you want nothing but word of mouth and referrals for your business where you're totally inundated, and the only thing you need to answer on a daily basis is how am I going to manage all these new clients, and how can I, how am I going to, bring on a new coach and train them quick enough in order to help me? The job is to be an unbelievable coach. I come back to Jim Carrey. The guy is unbelievable, my opinion, right? And if you don't love Jim Carrey, I'm totally fine with that. Then go Tom Cruise or, another, I'm trying to think of a really good actress, but I can't think of one right now, but that's okay. I'm trying to think of the girl, Silence of the Lambs. What's her name? Jodie Foster?
Jodie Foster.
Yeah, so like Jodie, let's go Jodie Foster. Bottom line is that Jim Carrey can do Ace Ventura and then The Mask, and then he can do The Man on the Moon, where he's Andy Kaufman, and he goes into character and doesn't come out of character for like whatever it was, like the entire time that they were filming the show. And it was the most, it was the most serious, you know what I mean? Like that was just, like in order to act like this, like Andy Kaufman was just unbelievable. And to think that the same guy could do Mask and then that, blow your mind. What I'm getting at is that my opinion is Jim Carrey is just an unbelievable actor. And so is Tom Cruise, and so is Jodie Foster, and so are the other actors and actresses that are getting $10, $20 million. They're not good. They're not connected. They're not really good at the audition. They're unbelievable at what they do. End of story. Robert De Niro, and the list goes on. So ultimately, let's make sure that we're keeping our eye on the prize here, generating leads, doing events, etc., your job is to be an unbelievable coach. So to your point, Road Dog, yeah, like if, you know what I mean, on a weekly basis, if you're showing up and you're giving tasks and that sort of stuff and your client's not getting a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit behind, then, you know, you need to look at your role as the coach and get better at, you know, prioritizing the things that you're handing off to your client and the things that you're getting them to do, et cetera. So.
Love it. Love it. It just, yeah, anyways, it just sort of hit me. But here's one. I'm going to kind of jump ahead in the questions here a little bit that I have, but this one I absolutely love, and it ties into exactly what we're talking about in terms of high level, low level coaches. So in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest difference between like a high level coach making 500K versus just a low end, you know, I hate to say low end, but a lower end coach charging like $500 a month? Like what do you think is the ultimate difference between the guys that are at the top of the game when it comes to business coaching and the guys that are probably just struggling?
Right. So, okay, well, what it should be is what I just described, right? The best coaches should be charging the most and everybody should be happy. Reality is that's not necessarily the way the industry works, right? I would just come back to sheer math. Just again, I want to make everybody feel comfortable here. Like a lot of coaches I'll speak to, $2,000 a month, 24 grand a year sounds like a lot of money, right? And frankly, it is. Okay, but when you go into a business and you understand that small little tweaks in multiple areas, like the money, like okay, you got a client who made $62,000 of profit last year, approximately. Okay. And then you go into 5 areas. Okay, so let's call them lead generation. Let's call that conversion. Let's call that unit of sale. Okay, like as in their price point, the number of transactions, and then conversions. Okay, so those are 5. Don't worry, like those are 5 different areas of their business. Okay, they made 62 grand. Now you increase each of those 5 by 10%. Okay, remember they made 62 grand. Okay, these guys live in California. They are on food stamps, right? This is a business that is not performing all that well. They're doing like, you know, $250,000 gross revenues. Okay, well, 62 grand of profit. If you increase the 5 areas I just outlined by 10%, they'll go from 62 to 100 grand. Okay, boom, that is $40,000 of jam that you have just created. And I want you to think of how small a 10% improvement is. Like if they get 10 clients a year, you turn it into 11. If they get 100 clients a year, you turn it into 110. If their conversions are 25%, as in 1 in 4 people buy from them, 10% is taking it from 25 to 27.5. Like to say that that's easy to do is just insanity. If their margins are say 20%, 10% is taking their margins not from 20 to 30, but from 20 to 22, right? Like it just, to say that that is not challenging is the mistake that we make is we go in, the mistake a coach without an enormous amount of experience has is that they go in and they come up with something new. They want to create something, right? It's that is not, take what they're already doing and make subtle tweaks in multiple areas. That's the way you really take your client to another level. And by the way, the client's dialed in on doing something new. And if the coach is dialed in on something new, you end up with a coaching client doing something new. It was probably already busy, possibly overwhelmed before you showed up, and now he's got more to do. See, think of it this way. Your job is to help your client do less, not more. And by the way, this is gray on frigging steroids. Okay, so this is not, every situation is different, okay? But think about that. Like a master, I see a lot of the time my job, I don't know if that's, so yeah, look, Road Dog, you came to me for advice. My mind would go immediately to help you on not what to, or, you know, what not to do more than what to do. Think of I think that could be a pair for some of the coaches listening. That can be totally game changing. My job is to help you and have the experience and not guess. This is the problem. I don't want to hear about your gut, right? Gut stands for gave up thinking. I want measured outcomes. I want facts, not theory. And then I want to make a decision based on that to help you with what not to do, right? Like that's total. I think that can be game changing. But so bottom line, we're working with our clients. Let's make sure that we're concentrating on becoming the absolute bloody best, right? Like, what's the difference between, like Tiger Woods from back in the day who was murdering it, LeBron James who rips around the basketball court like a stud, Michael Jordan, who in my opinion is just the absolute, he's my favorite athlete of all time. End of story. Love the guy and love his personality and just the way he's gone on to become a billionaire. Can't begin to tell you how much I respect that, right? He's taken sporting success and turned it into business success, which what most of them do, they go bankrupt. What's the difference between, but let's go back to basketball, let's go back to hockey, let's go back to tennis. What's the difference between the average and the elite? Okay, I have to say hunger as one thing because I've said that a million times and I do agree with that, and that is not going to change. But here's maybe a different way of looking at it. LeBron James practices to improve. He doesn't practice to practice. Okay, and I want you to think of the last time you went to the gym. Okay, did you go to the gym to improve, or did you go to the gym to go through the motions? And now, very importantly, I want you to be totally honest with yourself. Not, you know what I mean? Like, I think, and if I'm talking to 97% of the population, you went to the gym to just go through the motions. You didn't go to the gym like a Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Wayne Gretzky, Tiger Woods. Go to the gym to improve. Why? Who are you competing with? You. The goal is to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. And that's mastery. And the bummer, I guess, for some is that unfortunately you never get there. That's mastery. Mastery is it's not success. There's no championship. There's no trophy to hold up. Mastery is a competition with you. And frankly, you are all that matters. It's not Road Dogg, how much money are you making? How much money am I making? How much money is he? Who gives a crap? The question is, how much money are you making? And are you making a little bit more? Or your prospects of making a little bit more, if that's what you're trying to achieve? Or how many coaching clients do you have today? And tomorrow, are you a little bit closer to having more? That's mastery, right? And so practicing to improve, I think, is totally game-changing, paradigm-shifting, life-changing kind of way of looking at coaching. So okay, but I got to answer the question, right? So I just want to make sure that, because we're asking the question. Remember, the question is not always the question. Very, very seldom is that the reality. So I would just say that in the words of Dan Kennedy, which part of me agrees with, but then part of me would also stay on here for another hour and kind of fight it a little bit. But Dan Kennedy, somebody would ask Dan Kennedy and say, how do I double my fees as a coach? And his answer would be something to the effect here. I'm paraphrasing him. But you look your client in the eyes and with total confidence, you tell them your price, but multiply it by 2 before you'd say it, right? And that, again, it's not his exact words, but that's exactly the essence of what he said. And again, part of me agrees with that totally. The other part of me doesn't. But I'd have to ask you this question before I answered with that is, what are your fees now? And if they're only $1,000 a month, I am very comfortable telling you that you could go to $2,000 a month without batting a stinking eyelid, because $24,000, you can't see your coaching client paying you $24,000 a year as a huge amount of money, because it's not just your job. If it is, either the client's too small with no prospects of success, or you're just not good enough at what you're doing. So that's you know what I mean. So the difference. I mean, confidence absolutely comes into it, and mojo, ability to sell. I mean, at the end of the day, Road Dogg, somebody tells me they suck at sales. So I say, how many sales books have you read in the last 45 days? And we all know the answer, right? Like, what do you want me to say? You know what I mean? Like, you suck at sales, so you're accepting that you suck at sales, but you're not trying to improve. So just you suck at sales, that's fair enough. At least you're willing to be honest with yourself, I'll say to this person, right? Because not everybody is. They'll say, oh, look, they give me, like, everybody tells me they're an amazing public speaker until like 2 days before the event, and they're totally crapping their pants, right? And and by the way, I'm not saying that as a judgment or anything. I think still get up there, but you've got to be truthful and honest with where you're at. So if you've got a live event and then you haven't written a book, if you haven't practiced, if you haven't stood in front of the mirror and done your event with the foresight of not going through the motions but improving every time you stare at the mirror and do it, then You know what I mean? You're not going to ultimately achieve what you're looking to probably achieve. And I think that everybody should, and in no way, shape, or form do I want to press, my personal, kind of roadmap or my beliefs or kind of my own personal journey in anybody. But I think that mastery is the most awesome thing to look to achieve. But again, the thing that sucks about it is you never get there, and there is no trophy to hold up at the end. But mastery is just being a little bit better every single day.
Can I just throw in there, Karl?
Yeah,
I was going to say it's enjoying the journey along the way, right? So I just want to give a bit of a concrete example here, if that's all right. When you said sucking at sales, okay, it's my big thing. But why do I feel I suck at sales? Because I have an outcome that I want to hit. So I'll give you a good example here, and I'd like your thoughts on this. So here I am. So I'm not sure if actually I've even told you this. So I'm training for a marathon now, right? And my week is structured of 6 days of training. Now, it's not just all running. There's 2 strength workouts specifically for runners. One is speed work, one is marathon race prep. There's a recovery run, and there's a long run. So to get to my objective of what I want to do, which is crossing that finish line, and again, for me to right now even have an idea of what my actual race pace is going to be would be insane, because right now I'm entering week 4 and it's a 16-week training program. So for me to think of a result in week 16 at week 4, I think is a little ludicrous. And it hit me last week when I was doing my marathon race prep training, where they're expanding your marathon race pace. Okay. So this isn't speed work. This is now me getting comfortable at a certain pace for a certain period of time. And the words that the coach said to me, and again, this is all through an app, was this is at your current marathon race pace, not your projected, but your current race pace. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up. They want the end result now, not accepting, as you're saying, the reality of where they're currently at, and they're not willing to put in the work. So I would just say enjoy that journey, enjoy that struggle, because you will get better. So that's my 2 cents. And I just thought the marathon training was kind of relevant to that, in that what's your current race pace, and then what are you doing to improve it to get to the result that you want.
I love it. And what you're doing, though, through this app, no doubt, you're measuring yourself, right? So you know exactly where you're at. So therefore, you are going to know the next time that you do the same training and plug in the numbers, however that looks, you're going to know exactly whether you went backwards, whether you're the same, or whether you went forwards. And I know your personality, you are going to be happy with nothing apart from getting a little bit better. If you're a lot better, that's going to be amazing, but you just need to be a little bit better, because remember, 3 words, progress equals happiness. So a little bit of progress is going to make you feel good about it. And by the way, it's going to get you to go back. And I would dare say this, if you did that training, and this isn't for you specifically, Road Dog, let's just go back for the average person, right? And then you did this marathon training, and then you somehow, which this would very rarely happen and shouldn't happen, but if you went backwards 3 times in a row in that testing, this is something you'd give up on and go, you know what? I don't think that I should be doing a marathon. You come up with some story in your head with a reason why you shouldn't do it. And you go back, well, why the heck? I don't remember why I didn't do it. It's because you didn't experience progress. Therefore, you had no happiness in and around it. So you gave it away. And you said, okay, I'll only do 10K, or I'm going to learn to ride a bike, or I'm going to go swimming instead, or I'm going to do a triathlon. You change it. And there you go. But the measured outcomes, that's absolutely critical for what you're doing.
There you go. There you go. And it's funny too, just for a side note, I did my long run on Saturday, and I was nervous going into it. I'm not sure. I put that on Facebook too. It's like, I'm nervous going into this because it's the longest distance I've run in a while. And it really wasn't even that long. It was 8 miles. But, it's like, okay, so I'm nervous going into it. And guess what? I got stronger as the deeper I went into it. And I could have easily continued on. So obviously we shortchange ourselves so much in terms of what we're actually capable of. It's like the David Goggins of, it's like, you don't even know. You don't even know what you're capable of. So anyways, dude, we are, wow, time is flying as per usual. Any parting words from you on this one?
I think that just like somebody practicing to improve, again, I think in closing, that might just be something you want to take. That is the difference, right? And the Road Dog, your example of the marathon right there, it's just you're practicing to improve. And then you have, like, again, the app is tracing it, right? So if you lie down on a bench and you push the weight 8 times, next time it has to be 8.5 or 9 needs to be your goal. You don't have to get to it immediately, and you don't have to do it on every single exercise. Because again, if you're going to the gym, there's going to be, let's say you're doing 10 exercises and you're there for 45 minutes. So, but by measuring them all, you're going to feel like you're getting somewhere, but make sure that the goal is to increase the weight. The goal is to increase the reps. And this is how you improve. But by the way, if your goal absolutely isn't to get stronger for some reason that we don't understand on this, then that's fine. Like, we're not trying to push all these beliefs and that you've got to take on mastery and you have to take on practicing to improve. But if the goal, and you're listening to this, my guess is that you're looking to slay it and really knock it out of the park. Well, there are some hacks and there are some ways to do it. So that's what I'd say there, my man. So I guess that's it for today, correct? All good?
Yeah, you betcha.
You beauty. Okay, folks. Well, look, thanks so much for listening. As always, we appreciate it. If you could do us a favor, give us a rating and give us a review on the podcast, that would be super duper appreciated. If you can share this bad boy with somebody who you think needs it, somebody who's a pretty reasonable sales type and, high energy, Tony Robbins like, send this to them. If you think they'd make a great business coach, or if you do know an existing business coach, definitely send them to them as well and get them exposed to the podcast and the information that we are unloading. So we would appreciate that. But in between time and until next time, we appreciate you folks, and we will see you on the next show.
Make it a great week, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.